That, of course, is the great Paul McCartney.
Welcome to Expert Minutes. I'm John Hambone McGuire.
This conversation
Sweet, juicy. Where did that word come from?
I don't know.
Bet you never thought you'd hear that on the radio.
Hello, YouTube, and hello, Tom Linay. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Graham. How are you?
Very good. I'm Graham Mack. If you haven't seen this before, I present the Pod 20 on Podcast Radio, which is a countdown of the world's top podcasts. And, of course, one of those top podcasts. What's it called, Tom?
It's called Oath.
Oath, but it's OAF. It actually stands for something, but you pronounce it Oath. I mean, it is...
Yeah, we call it Oath. I mean, it's out on a Friday, so that is one of the reasons why it's called Oath. But it's called Oath for a number of reasons.
But Oath is on a Friday.
Yes, yeah. And also, the guy I do it with is a bit oafish. And I am, obviously, too. But
I don't know. I'm the Oath today because I spelt your name wrong in the bloody YouTube thing.
You did.
Up until about, 18 seconds ago, you were Tom Linay for people on YouTube going, who the hell's that? Yeah.
And we have been corresponding over email as well, so I've only taken it very slightly personally.
The other thing is, like, your last few emails all went in my junk. I just thought, I'll just check my junk, and there's like 2 emails in there from you, and one of them was that one. So I only just found out. It's no excuse. I should have got it right in the first place. And as you say, because we've been corresponding in email, I should have seen it there in email. There's no way I've misheard it, because this is the first time we've actually spoken.
And I've been called a lot worse, so it's okay. It's okay, Graham.
Yeah. So, well, you've got me on the back foot, which is a good place to have me, I think. So you say it's called Oath for various other reasons, as well as on a Friday. What are the various other reasons?
I mean, it's kind of open to interpretation. If you listen to the podcast, we kind of indicate on a few occasions throughout the first. We're up to episode 41 now. Why it's called Oath, but obviously the obvious one is it's out every Friday morning.
Mm-hmm. And
sorry,
what is your background?
So my background is that I am a massive film nerd, and I like podcasts. And we started the podcast sort of January, it was, because we were in lockdown for the 3rd time, as I'm sure everyone listening is aware. And
it's been in all the papers.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't read about it, I don't know where.
It's a big deal.
But, yeah, exactly. So we were in lockdown. I was furloughed from my work. And
what do you do?
So I work in cinema advertising. I work for a company called DCM, and my role in that is basically to be a professional film nerd. And
right, excellent.
So obviously cinema has been having a terrible time up until May this year, over the last year. And so I just needed something to do. And my friend Dan, who is my co-host on the podcast, he works for Amazon Music, and he was the opposite of me. He was very busy. And I felt like he needed some kind of outlet as well. So I just said, look, why don't we just do this podcast together? You can talk about the music. I'll talk about the films. It will give me something to do while I literally have nothing to do. And it's worked out really well. And to be honest, that was the only reason we started it. And the fact that some people listen and they really like it is just a massive bonus.
It is a great podcast. And I think what makes it is not the fact that you're talking about, well, I don't know if it's an old phrase now, but pop culture, the latest music, the latest movies, what's going on. I don't think that's what makes it. I think it's the chemistry between you two.
Well, he's one of my best friends, and I think that is what makes it work as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just been, for me personally, it's just been great getting to spend 45 minutes every Friday with one of my best mates and just chat about stuff that we would chat about anyway. And I think that was when we sent it out to our friends, we did a pilot episode, which will never see the light of day. And when we sent it out to our friends just to get their feedback, they were just like, it's just like listening to you two in the pub together. And obviously at the time, which was in January, we hadn't been able to do that. And I think people found, particularly our friends, found a lot of comfort in that. So that was a good thing.
So why will it never see the light of day? It sounds like
Pilot
the feedback was
one.
good. Yeah.
Well, just mainly because it was about an hour long, and we hadn't really worked out that what we were doing. And I think we've only just worked out what we're doing. It's taken sort of 40 episodes, and every time I listen to it, and I sometimes go back to older episodes and I listen to them, and I'm like, oh, actually, we're actually better at it now, and that's a good thing.
In what way are you better? How have you improved? In what areas?
I think, I mean, you might disagree because I'm assuming you've listened to a number of
I've
episodes
listened to quite
very
a few of
recently.
them. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, very recently as well. I think we are better at working out what works. So I think in the early episodes we waffled a lot more. We didn't really know how we wanted to present them, what we were talking about. I think again we worked on the chemistry as well, and I just think that I personally have kind of stopped talking as much, which I think is a key thing to do when you're talking on audio. Just learn when to not talk. And it took me about 35 episodes to do that, I think. And Dan's very different to me as well. And I think it took us a few episodes to just work out because I know Dan so well. As I said, he's one of my very best friends. But when the way he presents himself on the podcast is not quite how he is in real life. You know, I think you've probably got a sense of what our dynamic is on the podcast.
Yeah.
And when I speak to particularly my colleagues at work who listen, and they're all like, they have an idea of what Dan's like, and I'm like, well, he's not really like that, but he's just one of the funniest people I know. And it just took us a little bit of time to get that working on audio.
Right, but so it's his performance you're more critical of than your own?
No, but
it just sounded like that.
No, I think it just took me a while to work out because I edit it as well.
I see. Right.
So he just turns up and does the Dan thing, and I edit.
I mean,
it.
Look at this. Where is he now, for example?
Exactly.
You know, here you are trying to market the thing, and where's he? You know,
he's going to be on in 20 minutes, steal all the glory, and then and that'll be it. Same as normal. It's like I literally spent my mum every Saturday. She just tells me about how funny she thinks Dan is. Right. I think he's going to be invited to our Christmas lunch. And I think because the probably only reason I'll be invited because I might bring him along.
Right, because you know him. Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah,
he'll get you in.
She just wants to know. She wants to be friends with him.
So you started it out in lockdown. So I'm guessing you recorded it a lot like this over Zoom, Skype, whatever. Where is it done now? Because you're in the same room now. I can hear it now.
Yeah, it was only 3 weeks ago that we did it in the same room together.
So where do you record it?
The same place I'm doing this now.
In your front room?
The other side. Yeah, he's on the other side of this table. And I haven't quite worked out how to... Again, this is a new thing for us, recording in the same room. And I'm still not entirely happy with the audio quality. I want it to be better. Yeah. And it's a bit echoey. So I'm working on that. But that's just another thing to work on.
So what kit do you use? Well, let's start with the microphones. What are you using?
I'm just using a Shure microphone. I did a Google on best microphones to use, and this is the one apparently all the bands use because it's really hardy.
Is it an SM58?
Yes, that's the one. I was going to say 85, but it's 58, yeah. And Dan has just bought one of these, so just you wait next week. The audio is going to be even better.
No, they're good mics. I was in a band, and we always used SM58s for vocals, and we used SM57s to mic up guitar cabinets and stuff. And I think the 57 is the same capsule as the 58. It's just got a different, the 58 has got like a ball on the end of it as a giant pop filter. And I think the 57 doesn't have. I think it's actually the same mic, but it's like it's an industry standard in the music biz. It's that mic. The great thing about it is it's a dynamic mic, and I have this. Who was I talking to the other day about this? Oh, I was talking. It was somebody else. It was a guy who hosts. It was Anthony Davis who hosts 5 Minute News, the podcast, and he is a voiceover artist. And I was talking about this. There are two basic types of microphones. There's dynamic microphones like your Shure SM58. And then there are condenser microphones. And the top one of them is a thing called a Neumann U87. But there's a Neumann TLM 103, which is like a cheaper version of that. It's still like £1,000 or about £700 or something. And the thing with condenser mics is they're very, very sensitive. And for podcasting, they're too sensitive because podcasts are generally not recorded in sound-treated spaces. So you need something that's a little more forgiving, so a stage mic is perfect because they're not too sensitive, because otherwise they'd feed back through the PA. So the 58 is a good mic. You've got the right kit. So,
well, that was a complete fluke, Graham. Thank you for letting me know that I've made the right decision.
Hope I didn't get over techie there, but I
did glaze over slightly.
Yeah,
but the thing is, Dan is the technical one.
I realised a couple of weeks ago that there are a lot of people that watch the unedited version of this, because we're recording now for you to be a guest on the Pod 20 in a few weeks' time. We'll lift the audio track off, and you'll be in segments over about a period of about 6 weeks. You'll be a guest on the Pod 20. But this is the raw live recording, and we can go anywhere we like because we might not use it. But I realise a lot of people who are this deep into podcasting and have got podcasts or are thinking of starting them, they actually quite enjoy some of the tech talk because it helps them out.
I'm just grateful that you've told me I made the right decision, because I didn't know. But
you definitely did.
I bought this mic, and I've just got a Zoom recorder, and that's it.
And then to edit it, the Zoom recorder that records onto a what do you call it? Memory card, SD card, and then you stick that in a computer. And what editing software do you use?
I use Final Cut Pro, which I'm sure no one who edits podcasts uses.
That's a video editing program,
Yeah,
isn't
it's video editing software, yeah.
Why do you use that? Is that because you're a movie geek and you're visual?
Well, just because I have used it in the past to edit video.
Yeah.
And I just know how to use it. I know how to tweak the audio. And I find it really easy to edit the podcast using it.
Okay, right. Oh,
I'm not sure anyone else will be using Final Cut Pro.
No, I think people will be mostly using Audacity or Adobe Audition.
I downloaded Audacity and then just realised I preferred Final Cut Pro.
You did? Well, you got to go with what's easiest to work with. That's wow.
And I've got it. I've got Final Cut Pro, so it's like, yeah. I mean,
it's a pirate one, is it?
Oh no, it's not.
Sorry, I'm just
no, I actually do have a legitimate copy of Final Cut Pro.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk about the podcast itself then. Now, we mentioned movies, and I know you did. It was a very, very brief review of the latest James Bond film, which I've seen. Now,
yes.
There are quite a few spoilers in there that we don't want to reveal, but is there a reason why your review of Die Another Day was so short in a podcast that basically one of the big things you review is movies?
Well, just pick you up, it's No Time to Die.
Oh, what did I call it?
Die Another Day was the awful Pierce Brosnan one. And,
and Live and Let Die was the Roger Moore one. Die is you can see how I got confused. The new one is called what? It's called
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. And your name is
Tom Linay. Not Finney.
Not going well with names and titles today. You can see why it's only an edited version that makes it onto podcast radio.
But what I would say about us reviewing films, we're not a review podcast.
No. But you do talk about what's going on. It's kind of it's to give it a structure. Yeah.
Critic, so I'm not.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So that's not. I'm not interested in that. How I view it is, I like to know what's coming out. I don't really like someone to read reviews to find out whether I should see it. But if I like to know what's coming out, then I'll make a judgment call on that. So most of the time, we're just saying, out this week is Edgar Wright's new film Last Night in Soho, or out this week is Denis Villeneuve's new film Dune.
Okay.
I mean, occasionally I have seen the films in advance, but if I don't like the film, we generally don't talk about it.
Is that why No Time to Die was not talked about too much?
Well, what do you need me to tell you about the new Bond film? I mean, it's blanket coverage everywhere.
Yes.
Everyone knows it's coming out.
Yeah.
I think you don't need me to tell you whether you want to see No Time to Die or not.
Now, reviewing a James Bond film is pretty easy, I would have thought, because if I give you a quick review of a James Bond film, can you guess which James Bond film I'm talking about?
I will do my best.
Okay, the review is, an evil genius tries to take over the world and James Bond saves the world in the nick of time. Which one am I talking about?
Well, this is exactly what we spoke about. So last week, because Dan tends to see films quite late. And he saw No Time to Die a few weeks late. And so he spoke about it in more depth than when I spoke about it, especially as when you're talking about the James Bond film. The intricacies of the plot are not worth talking about. You know what the plot is, and the surprises you can't reveal.
Yeah.
So Dan saw it last week, and a few people asked, has Dan seen Bond yet? And then he watched it and he didn't like it.
He didn't like it.
And I felt like that's us done with Bond now. We don't ever need to talk about it again.
For what it's worth, I kind of liked it.
I liked it as well.
I thought it was good. I thought that it was a good farewell to Daniel Craig, and I think, I wasn't sure about him for a while until I watched Joe Rogan's podcast. Joe Rogan's podcast, because it's so damn long, I've never listened to it. I've only ever seen clips of it on YouTube. And there was a thing, I forget who he was talking to, and whoever he was talking to said, who's your favourite James Bond? And he said, Daniel Craig. And he said, why? And Joe Rogan said, because he's the only one that actually looks like he could kill a guy.
Yeah.
And
Sean Connery did. Sean Connery did.
I don't know. He walked like he could. But I think in a fight in their prime, if they were a similar age, I think Daniel Craig would kick Sean Connery's ass in a scrap if they were the same age.
Yeah, I would probably not disagree with that. I just didn't think I'd be just trying to work out who would win in a fight between Sean Connery and Daniel Craig. But Sean Connery was like a massive bodybuilder at some point. There wasn't he? Was like Mr. Universe, or he competed in that. So
yeah,
he had a pretty good physical.
I think he was a swimmer as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think he just had the. I don't think he had the meanness that Daniel Craig's got.
Well, Daniel Craig looks a bit more weathered as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He looks like he's had a few scraps or been in a few scrums. I don't know if he was a rugby player.
Having said that, he looks a lot more weathered when you see him at things like the premiere or on Graham Norton than he does in the film. I think they've CGI'd him just to make him look a bit better in the film.
I think just the cinematographer on a $200 million film is a lot better than the cameraman on the Graham Norton show. Yeah,
I'm sure they get the best they can for the money on the Graham Norton show.
Yeah, of course. But
yeah,
it's like, who is it? It's Linus Sandgren, I think, on the No Time to Die, and he's obviously a very talented cinematographer. But yeah, I mean, if I was being in a $200 million film, I'd ask for a good cinematographer as well.
Yes.
Just maybe not make my hair look less grey.
Yeah, and you'd ask not to work with Alec Baldwin or his armourer as well.
Yes, exactly,
that's one of the crucial. That's horrible, that, isn't it? Goodness me, how the hell did that happen? But we can't speculate until.
No, very sad.
Yeah, just awful, just a shocking tragedy. So do you get to see films for nothing then, being in the film advertising biz?
Yeah. I mean, I do pay to go to cinema quite often, but we do get one of the perks of the job is that because we work with so many of the exhibitors, and I know a number of people who work at cinemas, I do get to see a lot of films for free. But if I want to see a film in IMAX on opening day, I will buy a ticket.
Right.
And I love going to see films in IMAX on opening day. I love that big. One of the best things to do with my pals is just go and have a big cinema event. We did it for Dune at the weekend.
Is it good?
And I'd already seen Dune. Yeah, I loved Dune. And actually preferred it on the second viewing as well.
Yeah, I saw the Apollo 11 documentary on IMAX.
Oh,
Where do you go? I've been to that one at Waterloo. I think that's the only UK one I've been to.
That's a good one, but I tend to go to the Cineworld IMAX in Leicester Square. But that Apollo 11 documentary is just a stunning documentary, isn't it? The footage is unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it.
And on IMAX, God, it was like being there at the launch.
Yeah,
wow.
I came out of it thinking, if Christopher Nolan had made that film this week, it wouldn't look as good as the remastered footage from 1969.
69. Yeah. Wow, it is incredible. So, what have you been talking about lately with Dan on the podcast then, as well as films, music and all the other bits and pieces that you cover?
Well, one of the things I like most about the podcast is because I talk about the film section, Dan talks about the music section, but the first 10 minutes is basically us talking about what we've watched or what we've been listening to. So the first 10 minutes tend to be Dan talking about what films he's watched and me talking about what music I've listened to, because I'm gonna spend the later part of the podcast talking about films. So I think that's just something that's kind of developed over the sort of 40 episodes that he tends to talk more about films, and then he comes at it from someone who doesn't know too much about that filmmaker or the film, and I'll kind of fill in the gaps for him. And then, or we'll go to, since gigs have been happening, so we started obviously in lockdown. From sort of May, June onwards, we've been going out and talking about things that we've been doing. So we've been to gigs together, we've been to music festivals, we've been to, I went to a classical concert last week that we talk about on the podcast this week. So anything in the first 10 minutes is nothing's out of bounds. So a couple of weeks ago, I went in a flotation tank. So we spoke about that because Dan was very surprised that I'd done that. And, just things that we've been doing in that week. So it all started off with what we've been doing in lockdown. And then as we've been able to do more things, it's just kind of broadened out a bit.
Flotation tank. So this is where they take away as many of your senses as possible.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
So you're in the dark.
Yep.
You're floating, so you've got no kind of feeling, no points of reference really. And isn't the temperature of the water at about the same temperature as your blood or something? So you can't even feel you're actually... It really is as close to being isolated from being alive without being dead, isn't it?
It's supposed to be the same temperature as your body, so you don't feel the water against your skin. You just feel like you're floating.
And what's it
it's
like?
Very salty water. I am a big fan, but I'm into anything that kind of relaxes you or changes your state of mind. And I just find it really relaxing. But it's a total journey. It's an hour, and it's in the dark. And I find that, if you listen to the podcast, I explain it, but it takes you a while to get used to just not thinking about anything. But in the process of doing that, I seem to think about everything. So it takes me like 40 minutes to stop thinking. And then for 20 minutes, I'm actually genuinely relaxed, almost falling asleep.
So it's a lot like meditation then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, because I like meditation.
If you're into your mindfulness techniques, it's a brilliant thing to do.
So it's the same thing to do, so that when you feel a thought, you just gently push it away.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's exactly the same kind of setup as that. The only thing that I don't like is, well, I've never tried it because one of the main reasons I like meditation is the joke is I meditate because it's better than sitting around doing nothing. One of the things I like about it is because it is sitting around doing nothing, and it annoys me that people who are into yoga have combined something I hate, which is exercise, with something that I love, which is meditation, and that just bothers me. But that's just me, I think.
Well, I like both, and I think I'm into it. Or any mindfulness technique, I will give it a go.
Right. Okay.
I like. I'm always looking to relax more.
Yeah. Now, when I used to do breakfast radio, I always used to meditate for 20 minutes before I went on the air, which meant I'd get into the studio really early and turn all the lights off. And I had a co-host once walked into the studio, turned the light on, freaked her the hell out. But it was like how you defrag your computer. For me, it was like you just defrag so that when you do go live at 6 a.m., that you're totally focused on everything on the show and the research. When I first started doing it, it was an all-speech show. It was BBC local radio, and I found it really helped. So do you do it? Do you think it helps the podcast to have the old float tank?
No.
Really?
Well, not that it doesn't help. Not that it doesn't help, because I don't do it often enough. But any mindfulness technique I find just helps me, especially over the last year. And one of the reasons I started the podcast was just because my mental health has really suffered in the last year.
Had it really? What kind of stuff you go through?
Just anxiety, depression, that kind of thing.
Really?
And the podcast has really helped with all of that. Yeah, it's been a massive. It's been so important to me just having something to focus on like that. It's been. I mean, obviously it's been a tough 18 months for everyone, but I found it particularly tough, and it's been just hugely important to me having something to do, and also have something that had a positive influence on people, or seems to have had a positive influence on people. It means the world to me that a number of people who I care about very deeply and like a lot have reached out to me and said how much they like it. And even people who I had a friend who I used to go to school with, haven't seen for, at least a decade. He lives in Canada now, and he's been listening to the podcast. I'm not entirely sure how he found it, but he just sent us a lovely email about how much he enjoyed it. And, just things like that have just been really, really important for me in helping me get through the last sort of 9 months, year.
Yeah, because it's risky.
A lot's been going on in that period for everyone, obviously, but for me, it's been a really tough period.
I mean, because you put yourself out there when you say, look, you're basically putting your friendship, you're commercializing your friendship, probably using the word commercializing in its loosest sense.
Yeah, we haven't done that. It would like to commercialize our friendship.
Yes, yes.
To, yeah.
A lot of podcasters
commercialize mine and Dan's friendship.
Please
email over the podcast.
So the podcast doesn't actually make any money yet?
No, not yet. We haven't even really tried to make money, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't really. I mean, as I said, we're not very good at self-promotion, me and Dan, and the podcast has been just something that has kept both of us busy over a really tough period, and kept me busy, and has just been good for us in other ways. And so, if people like it and it grows, then that's a great thing. But for me personally, it's just been something that has really affected my life in a positive way over a really tricky period, and that in itself is enough for me. I don't feel like I need anything else from it. But the fact that some of my favorite people in the world like it is just a massive bonus.
Yeah, because it is a risk putting yourself out there, because you could get negative feedback, and it doesn't matter how many, if you, I'll get to this in a second, but it doesn't matter how many positive comments you get about something that you've worked on and you put out there. It only takes one negative one, and that's the one you focus on, because there is something wrong with us as people who put stuff out there, that we cannot feel complete as human beings without external validation. And that's true for, it's a spectrum, but it's true for anybody in showbiz, or whatever you call this, the outskirts of showbiz, whatever you call podcasting at the level that you and I do it. And it is that's the risk you take, that we are hypersensitive. We crave this validation because there's something wrong with us. So well done that it's going so well. So you haven't thought about going down the Patreon route, which a lot of podcasters are doing these days?
I haven't. We've made a couple of jokes about it on the podcast.
You have?
But, yeah. But also, I would like to at some point. I guess the only goal for the podcast, for me personally, is to be able to pay someone to edit it.
You don't like the editing?
I love the editing, but I could see that being the bit in the future which becomes a chore or tiresome. At the moment, I love the editing. We record on a Friday afternoon, and then first thing on a Saturday, I start editing the podcast. And it's at that point that I just find myself on a Saturday morning chuckling away, because I'm just laughing at what I hadn't noticed, that's something that Dan said.
Yeah.
And he is very dry and droll, and I'll just find myself laughing so hard by myself on a Saturday morning because I hadn't noticed that Dan had said something really funny. And then when you kind of put it all together, so I listened to this, the episode that's coming out this Friday, I listened to it on a walk just about an hour before we recorded. And it was then I realised, there's some funny stuff in this one. And and it's that I really love that process. But I think at some point that will be the bit that becomes a bit tiresome. I might have a really busy week, and having to edit it might become a bit of a chore. And so at some point I'd like to be able to get someone to do that, but we're nowhere near that at the moment, I don't think.
Have you ever had that where someone else has edited your stuff?
No, not this podcast, no. Not anything. But also, if you want to do it, Graham, I'm more than happy for you to have a go crack at it.
The reason why I'm saying is I don't like other people to edit my stuff, because I go, why did you get out there? That's why did you take, where's that bit? Why is that bit left in? Why is that bit not taken out? Why didn't you put that bit up the beginning? It's something I struggle with, is I get, with radio work and that, I find I don't like other people editing my stuff. And, even when I do a couple of radio shows, and obviously I do one on podcast radio, and I've had in the past, I've done radio shows where I've just sent them the bits and they've played them out, and sometimes I'm like, no, that's not. You've missed why that was funny, or you know what I mean. It'd be interesting to see if you did get someone to edit it, whether that made you happier or not. I'm just warning you.
I'm open to it. I am open to it. It's quite funny actually because I edit it and then send it to Dan, and only once in 41 episodes has he asked for something to be changed or to be removed. Which either he's not listening to it back or he's just happy with it. But I think he's happy with it most of the time. And but at some point I think we'll probably get someone else to edit it.
Right. So where are you with the state? Because podcasting is the latest evolution for me of audio entertainment. Because for me it goes back to when Britain, if we just talk about the British example, when we first had commercial radio, what they used to call ILR, independent local radio, it was full service. You know, I grew up in the northwest of England, and Radio City, which was our local station in Liverpool, you know, they would have a classical music show on a Sunday night, and they would have a pub discussion show called It's Your Shout. I think that was on a Friday night. And they'd have another one called, I think it was called Out and About or something, where they'd record in a club or something. It'd be like in a Labour club or something, or a Conservative club, you know. And so it was full service, and then it was kind of top 40 through the day. Well, that changed when they split the frequencies and had AM and FM, and the AM played more of a gold format, and the FM played more of a top 40 format. And then that got split even more when we got, you know, DAB and we got more stations. So you'd have something like Planet Rock as a rock station, and you'd have, you know, Classic FM was a classical station, you know, and it got split up more and more. And then, you know, now if you want to listen to talk, you listen to a talk station like, you know, Talk Radio or LBC or Times, one of those. You want to listen to, you know, wallpaper music and brain dead disc jockeys reading cards, you listen to Heart. And so it's now diversified into that. It's gone even further now with podcasting. Whereas if you want to listen to talk, you listen to a podcast, and if you want to listen to music, you listen to streaming. Do you feel that radio has become irrelevant now because of that?
No, absolutely not. I mean,
why?
I love listening to the radio, and I think it's more the unpredictability of radio in that.
Because it's live?
Well, yeah, well, not just that, but
there's nothing much unpredictable about Heart or Capital, though, is there?
But
I mean, you know you're going to get one of 12 songs and an idiot in between and some annoying commercials. It's pretty predictable.
But I'm not listening to those.
Of course not. Yeah.
But I'm listening to the radio stations I listen to because I trust the programming, and obviously, if I want to hear a specific song, I can put a song on Spotify.
Yeah.
If I want to hear people talk about football, I can listen to Guardian Football Weekly or something. But I put Six Music on, and I don't know what they're going to do, but I like the presenters, and I generally like the playlist they choose.
Yes.
And so I'm going to hear some fun music that I maybe haven't heard for a while.
Yeah.
And quite often I'll listen to Six Music. They'll play a song I've not heard in 5 years, and I'll add that to my Spotify, and then
they'll introduce you to something new that you mightn't have gone to. Or it might even be an album track from an artist you've heard of, but you didn't know that track.
Exactly. That's what happens all the time. Yeah.
I think it's a very good example. I think the Six Music model has got more legs than current commercial music radio, which is eating itself and is trying to become a half-assed streaming service when it will never. You know, why get into a peeing contest with someone you can't beat? You'll never stream more songs than a streaming service or get it more personal than a streaming service. I don't understand current commercial music radio's policy, other than if it's trying to kill itself, well then it's going down the right track. I just don't understand that. But yeah, Six Music is a great example of probably the future of radio, because otherwise I don't think it's got one. I just really don't. That's why podcast radio is so good. You really don't know what you're going to get. You just get podcasts. But also, there's a certain element of curation on podcast radio as well, isn't there? So as long as you trust the provider... Jerry has very high standards.
Yeah, that's clearly.
That's why OAF on a Friday, that's why it's on podcast radio. No, it is,
But,
you know.
But, you know, I mean, I just... You know, I spend half my, and I listen to audio all the time.
Yeah.
As soon as I'm done with here, I'll put my stereo on and listen to probably either the music or a playlist. And I just like my own curated lists, but then it's nice to just have someone else do that for you, and that's what radio provides, I think.
Yeah.
And I listen to 60s music, and I listen to absolute 80s. It's great to hear what's some songs from the 80s I haven't heard for a while or whatever, or and I don't mind listening to hard 80s either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite nice when we're in the office and someone puts on a radio station that I normally wouldn't choose, and I'll hear some music that I haven't heard from before.
Mm-hmm.
I like one of the most best and most important things about our podcast is that it has introduced me to loads of new music that I wouldn't have had a chance to listen to had Dan not told me about it. So Dan is one of my best friends, but he doesn't. Whenever we meet up, we don't talk about the latest single from Selena Sharma or someone like that, or Holly Humberston. That's just not what we talk about. But the fact he's talked about them on the podcast means that I've listened to them and really enjoyed them. And had I not done a podcast, I probably wouldn't have been introduced to those artists, because obviously there's the same artists that we both really love that we will talk about, just in a social setting. But he wouldn't tell me about, the latest pop music, and I like to know about these things. It's good to, I love pop music and I love all genres of music, and the fact that we get to talk about them on a weekly podcast has been massive for me. I just love. I've probably discovered more music this year as a result of the podcast than at any year in the last 20 years.
Even though you were already mates with Dan?
Yeah, but that's his job as well. He doesn't want to talk about work after work, does he? We'll talk about the gig we're going to go to that week, or the album that he's loving, but he won't tell me all about all the new music that's out that week, which he does on the podcast.
Yeah. And
what
what about
films?
If we're staying with audio, do you ever listen to audiobooks?
No, I've been meaning to. I have listened to audiobooks, mainly the Alan Partridge ones, just because I love the fact that he reads them.
Yeah.
But that is something I plan to get into. But it's the same with everything. There's so much stuff out there, whether it's stuff to watch or stuff to listen to. You can't listen to it all.
No.
And I just haven't. I feel like I just don't have the space in my life for that yet. But at some point, I would like to.
Yeah, I've got 87 audiobooks I've done on Audible right now. Yeah, all sorts of genres. I haven't written any of them, but I've voiced them. But
you've done voices on them?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, 87. If you go to Audible, you put my name on Audible now, there's 87 audiobooks that I've done. Some of them long, one of them 15 hours, some 6-9 hours, some of them short, like an hour. But
if I'm going to go listen to one of them, Graham, which one should it be?
Oh, you've put me on the spot now, because the authors I work with, if they're watching this, they want me to all name their one, don't they? Well, do you like fiction or non-fiction?
I prefer non-fiction.
Non-fiction. Let's see, what would be a good one? Maybe one of the finance ones, once about making money and playing the stock market.
I need that, definitely.
Yeah. I've done a few finance ones. Also, how to break your cell phone addiction. I've done one about that. That was pretty good. If you think you're hooked on your how to break your cell phone addiction.
I think I'm all right with that, but.
Okay. Possibly the money ones.
Is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I love it. Oh, yeah, it's great. Because I do it all from home, so, it's not like
you're home
working.
at the moment, then?
Yeah, I'm home. This is my...
Because obviously it's a very professional setup. I'm starting to realise I need pointy walls. And
Well, no, these are only foam. These come off. Look, they just stick on. So you just get a few of them, and you're laughing. And that's all you need to do. But there's some really nice ones you can get for your home. They're like a big box, and they have all the foam is inside, and on the outside it looks like, say, a wall, whatever you call those wall things. And if you wanted to do your living room, you could do it and still have it look like a living room, is what I'm saying. You have these, it's like a wooden frame, and inside is all the sound absorption material, but on the outside is like a canvas or something, so you could have anything on there. It's got little tiny holes in it and stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's my next journey in podcasting, to get foam walls or anything.
But some of the joy though of podcasting is that it is real. You know what I mean? And I think that happened during lockdown, whereas, TV used to get very stuffy about, oh, it has to be in good quality and he has to come into the studio and all that. And then when lockdown happened and they couldn't do that, then they started, talking to people on Skype and Zoom and everything. And it's almost better because it's got that unpredictability. You don't know if, the toddler's going to march in or, so it has changed. And I think maybe podcasting's got to be careful. It doesn't go too pro. It might just take the edge off it if it's too slick.
Well, one thing we're going to do over the next few weeks is, and this is something we're able to do now, we're recording in person, is we're going to hopefully have guests on.
Great. And you'll have them in, or will you have them remote?
Yeah, I mean, the key is they have to be able to come to my flat on a Friday at 6 p.m. So that's going to limit, obviously, the number of guests we're going to have. But yeah, if they can get to my flat for 6 p.m. and for an hour, then they'll get to be on the podcast.
And where is your flat?
It's in North London.
Okay, so it's not in the Outer Hebrides or anything.
No.
North London, that's surely no one's got an excuse. You're probably close to a railway station or a tube or a bus stop.
Not too far.
So I think that could happen, because the thing you could the thing that you can do now is, because everybody has a podcast and everybody wants to promote their podcast, you can get guests on who are podcasters, and some of them might be, celebrities at some level in some field. There's a good chance you can get them on because they'll want to promote their podcast.
And and Dan, via his work, knows people who work in the music industry, so we're hopefully going to get some musicians on. We've got one or two who are keen to come on. So
can you give us any names?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
And it's not just because I don't know their names.
Okay. No. Okay. So who's the podcast for? Who listens to Oath? I mean, you mentioned Guy in Canada. You mentioned your mates and stuff. Yes. Yeah, no, but you must have a target audience in your mind when you put the thing together.
Not really. I do think, though, it is people like myself who I probably struggle to keep up to date with what's new in film and music. So that's something that I'm, over the last 10 years, and I think a lot of people probably share that, is that you just slowly find it harder to keep up to date with what's coming out. And this is basically half an hour every week, which just tells you what's coming out in film and music. And it's, you don't have to, sometimes, so let's be honest, I'm not really going to listen to the new Adele song that much, but it's good to know that it's coming out. Or, the new last week we spoke about the new Coldplay album. It's a concept album. I wasn't aware of that. And I quite like to know those sort of things. Even though I'm not going to listen to it, I have listened to it, but I won't be listening to it much going forward. But and also, I just think it's quite nice to. Obviously, you might not go and see a film at the cinema because we talk primarily about cinema releases. But the thing about major films is that in 4 months' time, you might see that on your streaming platform, and you'll have heard about it because it was on Oath or something. And that's what I hope happens.
No, it is good. I know when I listen to one of my favourite podcasts is Penn's Sunday School, which is Penn Jillette, one half of the Penn and Teller, the magicians in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. And, he was talking one day about a TV series. It's either called Patriot or The Patriot. It sounds like it's nothing like it. It's basically this guy's a spy, but he's also a folk singer, and he's a rubbish spy. Mm-hmm. But it's a great show, and I would never in a million years have found that if he hadn't mentioned it and said how much he enjoyed it. And that is one of the great things about podcasts, because that's what people do, don't they? They recommend, people who they like recommend them stuff. And if you have a favourite podcast, then that podcaster, because podcasting is such an intimate thing, you will take their recommendation on stuff. What podcasts do you listen to? What inspires you?
I have a favourite podcast, and I listen to every week without fail, and it's the Wisden one.
What's it called?
Wisden. It's about cricket.
Okay.
To be honest, my happy place is basically listening to the 4 people on the Wisden podcast talking about the week's events in cricket. I just love it, honestly.
It's better than live cricket, better than Test Match Special, because Test Match Special really is special. That's something else.
No, I much prefer Wisden's podcast.
You do? Okay.
My dream would really be to get Phil Walker, the editor of Wisden podcast, the editor of Wisden on my podcast. That would be a dream for me. Yeah, I really
well,
love
the good
that
news is
podcast.
once this live broadcast finished, a recording of this goes on YouTube and stays. You'll be able to clip that bit you've just said, or at least link to it with start at this point and send it to him and say fair's fair. I got you mentioned on podcast radio. It's only fair that you should come on.
Yeah, I mean, my passions are really cricket and music and film, but probably in that order. No, music probably first, and yeah, the Wisdom podcast every week. I mean, I don't really. It doesn't come out on a set day each week. So this evening, I was just checking to see if it was out yet because I'd really want to listen to it, but no, because obviously the T20 World Cup's on at the moment, so there's going to be loads to chat about. Bet you didn't think we would be talking about cricket today, did you?
Well, I don't know. Wasn't it India and Pakistan yesterday? How did that finish?
Yeah, it was
up?
India, Pakistan. Yeah, that Pakistan won by 10 wickets. Yeah.
Wow, that would have been exciting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably the biggest rivalry in sport.
Yeah, apart from Liverpool and Man United, which also turned out great as well.
Also a rout yesterday, yes.
Yeah. So do you play cricket?
I mean, I did. I'm part of a team that plays on Victoria Park in the summer. I didn't play this summer, but we actually do have our cricket team night out this weekend. And but yeah, I love cricket and I do play, but I'm terrible at cricket. I'm someone who puts in the effort, but for little reward.
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, if you enjoy doing it, that's what it's about.
Yeah, it's probably a bit like my podcasting. Put in the effort for little reward.
Well, no, I think that's only because, as you said, you haven't, I know a couple of people have gone down the Patreon route and have done very, very well out of it. And until you explore it, you don't know. I've never looked at it, but apparently that is a great way to get some money out of it. Yeah.
I would never rule it out, but I think it's a long way off for us.
Really?
Yeah.
So the motivation is just for the love of it, for the art.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I get to chat to one of my favourite people in the world every Friday for 45 minutes. We cut it down to half an hour, and then we put it out there, and we just get really nice feedback for it. And my other favourite people in the world feedback every week about how much they enjoy it, and that's that's great for me. Very happy with that.
Yeah. Well, it's a great podcast. It's called Oaf, and if you forget the name, it's on a Friday. But that's not the only reason why it's called that. What's Dan's last name? Am I going to get that wrong as well?
Smee, S-M-E-E.
S-M-E.
S-M-E-E.
S-M-E. Well, that's confusing, isn't it? It's Smee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because that could sound like it's me. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Oh, I could mess that one up quite easy, like I messed yours.
Well, I think is he coming on at some point? I think he might be coming on at some point.
Is he really? When's he coming on? Do you know?
I don't know. Well, Jerry emailed us both, and he said that we were both going to be on something. So.
Well, more than likely, because because Jerry's the boss, so I suck up to Jerry. So if Jerry says you've got to get someone on, I get him on. There's only a couple of people have knocked me back actually when I've reached out to them. So I'm having. All right. Do you know? So Dan hasn't said to you when he's on.
No, but I think he's up for it.
Let me have a look at my calendar because I normally do these for what it's worth. I normally do these live at 7:30 on a Monday. Let me just see. No, he's not.
He would be much better
next
than me.
week. He's not on the week after. He's not on the week after that.
Right, I'm going to get on to
He's
Jerry,
not on the week after that, and he's not on the week after that, and he's not on the... And we're already up to the 6th of December there I'm looking at. No, he's not on that one. I've got some... Tell him if he gets in touch with me. I've got a slot open on the 20th of December. But I haven't got him booked in. Yeah, it could be the Christmas special. What's that?
He likes fancy dress as well, so...
Tell him it is fancy dress. Yeah, it is.
Well, Christmas one.
Well, yeah, why not? Hey, it's been great talking to you, and apologies once again for getting your name wrong on the YouTube thing. But it is all straight now. It's a great podcast. It's just two guys talking about what's going on. And if you feel hopelessly out of touch with music or with music like they do, then listen, and you won't. You'll just feel part of the gang. and send them some nice comments, because it's really important, because it's really helped Tom this, and he's really enjoyed being part of it. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck in that bloody float tank, and he won't make any podcasts. So please do what you can for Tom, because it's made a big difference. Tom, it's been great having you on. Continued success. We get the podcast from all the usual sources from where you get your podcast. You've got it across everything.
Yeah, except Acast. So
you're not on
look
there.
Acast.
Oh,
Yeah,
do you have
that
to be?
one.
Do you have to be specially selected by them? Do you? Be
I
one
don't
of
know.
them?
Our hosting platform is Buzzsprout, and for some reason they put it on every platform except Acast.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that one day we'll be on Acast too.
All right. Well, you haven't said anything nasty about them in this podcast, so there's a good chance, I would have thought. So come
if
on,
you're listening to Acast, get in touch.
All right. And what are you up to personally? What you got coming up outside the podcast? What's coming up in your life? What's happening in your world?
That's wow. Over the next few weeks, well, I mean, I tend to go to the cinema a lot, Graham. I will level with you. So this weekend I was going to see Last Night in Soho. I'm going to Manchester next week for a few days, which will be nice.
Really? Manchester's going to be nice?
Do you know what? I love going to Manchester. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I love going to different cities in the UK. I'm going to Edinburgh in a couple of weeks as well.
That's a good city.
A couple of weeks after that, yeah.
Edinburgh's a good city.
So you said you're from the northwest. Are you not Manchester then?
Well, I was born in Liverpool, but when I was 2 years old, we moved out to Great Sankey near Warrington, which is 15 miles away from Liverpool, which, if you know, Liverpool is like being, the other side of the world when you're 15 miles away. But, Warrington is kind of halfway between Manchester and Liverpool. So one half of Warrington connects to Liverpool and the other half connects to Manchester. Like, for instance, Chris Evans is from Warrington, but he's from the eastern side, so he's more connected to Manchester, where people from the western side of Warrington, where Great Sankey is, are more and it was one of those things that was kind of an overspill from both the cities, ended up in the, because it's cheaper housing and you got more space and all the rest of it. And both cities in the 60s, but particularly Liverpool, went through a really hard time, 60s and 70s. So my connection is to Liverpool because I was born there. But I spent a long time away, though, from the age of 8. I was out the UK for 14 and a half years from the age of 18. From 1983 to 1997, I was in New Zealand and Australia. So I feel pretty connected to Sydney as well. But it's just one of those weird things.
Yeah, I spent a year in Sydney once.
Did you? Whereabouts?
Mostly in Balmain,
Okay.
Rozelle.
Yeah, that's a good. Did you watch the Balmain Tigers?
West Tigers, yeah. No, we went, so we
was
were
that
right
Super?
near West Tigers Stadium.
Was it Super League when you were there? Because when I was there, I left Australia. When we first went to Sydney in 1990, and it was still old NRL, and we used to watch the North Sydney Bears at North Sydney Oval. We lived in Wollstonecraft near Crow's Nest on the North Shore.
Yeah.
And but it was Balmain Tigers with Benny Elias was their big player. The rugby league there is just great.
Yeah, I mean, it was 99, 2000 I was there. So that's a long time ago. Yeah.
So I was back here by then. I came back here in 97. Okay. So what were you doing in Sydney?
So I was just there working, there for the Olympics as well.
You were there for the Olympics? Wow.
Yeah, with one of my friends. We just...
Oh, you were illegal?
No, we weren't illegal. We had a visa.
You had a visa? You had a work visa? Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So, no, it was... it was just...
there's a lot of English people I know that went there on holiday visas and worked
a lot of people
in the basement of the Queen Victoria building. There's a thing called Eat Street. It's all the food places. And it was all run by English people. Well, run by English people. English people worked there. I don't know what it's like now, but that's how it was, yeah. So.
No, so while all my friends were at uni, I wasn't ready to go to uni, and I just went to Australia for a year.
Oh, this was gap year?
Yeah, well, no, I had about gap 4 years.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was an air conditioning engineer. Sydney, Australia is probably one of the worst places in the world to be an air conditioning engineer, because what you do is you drive to places where the air conditioning doesn't work. You go to a stinking hot building and go inside it and have to fix it, and then as soon as you've fixed it and the building's cooled down, you leave and go to another stinking hot building. It's just the It's the craziest job ever. Yeah, so that's why I
I
decided
met quite
to
a few of air conditioning engineers while I was over there.
You
It
did?
seems
What
like,
companies? Was it Hayden's, Easterways?
Oh, I haven't got a clue, Graham.
I worked
mean,
for
it was 20 years ago.
Easterway.
I
Hayden
can't
was the
remember
big one.
much of that year, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Well, how about that then, eh? So we got something in common.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever need anyone to come on your podcast and talk about living in Sydney or getting into radio in Sydney when you don't know anyone in radio, when you don't know anyone in Australia, never mind in radio.
Well, I'll be in touch, Graham.
Yeah, okay. If you're looking for guests and one of them lets you down, obviously, because surely I'm not going to be first
Can
choice.
you be in North London at 6 o'clock on a Friday?
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
the only stipulation.
Well, I can because I live in Hitchin in Hertfordshire, and the train goes straight into King's Cross.
Finsbury Park. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, we get off at Finsbury. I could get off. You live at Finsbury Park?
Not far from there.
Yeah, I could get off at Finsbury Park. Yeah, because I went to watch Liverpool at Arsenal and just went on the train and just walked from Finsbury Park. It's great. Yeah. All right, well, good luck with it. The podcast is called OAF. It is with Tom Linay and Dan Smee. That's his name.
Tom Linay. That's the name that you were.
Oh, have I done it again?
Me. You've done it again, Graham. Right, I'm going to go, and I'm going to be the one who ends this.
I'm even looking at your name, Linay, on the screen, and still read it wrong. That is how much of a mess I am. That is how much of a problem podcast radio has got that they've hired me to do the Pod 20, the countdown of the charts. Anyway, it's great to meet you.
Thanks, Sam. You too. You take
best
care.
of luck with it all. And I think I'll go now before I get any more names wrong.
No worries. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.